So first of all, like good evening, good afternoon to anyone. So I know like we have a lot of teams here. I will introduce myself. So my name is Nina and I'm community like manager here at iGMS. And like all of us are thrilled to have you like join us today for this workshop. So this is like one of our first workshops that we host today. So it will be like a valuable insight for hosts as well as like people who are just starting out. So like we'll be hearing like experiences from our experienced hosts who we have today here. And let's just like get like a quick round of introductions. So we have like 4 different hosts here. And let's start with Sean. So give us like a brief introduction of yourself, like how many properties do you manage? Basically anything that will help our attendees.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Nino. So I'm Sean Britt. I'm based out of Houston, Texas. I currently have 7 vacation rentals. 6 of them are in Surfside, Texas, which is a small beach town, a little bit south of Galveston. A lot of people have heard of Galveston, not a whole lot of people have heard of Surfside. And then our newest property is in Canyon Lake. And so I started in 2015 with 1 property in Surfside, and we've grown since then. It's a family business. We own and operate all of our properties, and each one of us have full-time jobs too. So I'm a senior manager at Ernst & Young as well, and I have a pretty busy schedule as well. And my mom's involved in it, and my 2 brothers are involved in the business too. And so we manage everything in the family business here, and I'm glad to be a part of this panel here and hope to provide some good insights.
That's amazing. Now let's move on to our next host, who is Chris.
Yes. Thank you, Nina. My name is Chris Jube. I'm out of Monument, Colorado. My short-term rental journey started in 2019. I was getting jealous of my adult children who were getting a piece of the action and Airbnb and Vrbo and all that. I put up my tent in my backyard during a remodel of my bedroom. And Wendy and I loved it, and we had a blast for that month and a half while remodeling the bedroom. But instead of moving the master bedroom back indoors, I said, let's put it up on Airbnb and see what happened. And we booked out the rest of the summer and couldn't believe it. The next summer, we did the same thing with 2 tents, because it doesn't take an idiot to figure out that this is a thing. And we booked out that whole summer. And then the next summer really blew the lid off with 6 different units. And now I'm entering into the 5th season of our operation. I'm permitted for 8 units. We have 7 units up. It's a big time right now because I just had a septic system in place, or it's actually halfway covered up now. I've got a ribbon cutting ceremony on Monday. It's a big deal. And we have a second property on the other side of town that we're starting to establish. I'm submitting for that special use this week. Lots of things to do with in the whole glamping world. If any of the visitors don't know what glamping is, it stands for glamorous camping. It's the coolest thing in real estate, I think. It is a lot of fun. We have safari tents and bell tents, and we have container homes and schoolies that are remodeled, things like that. And it's a lot of fun in the real estate world. And I manage it all with iGMS. iGMS is what I use to take care of customers and keep them satisfied. And as we keep growing and keep going, we're actually looking into a 3rd property and in discussions with that. So it's a neat world. So thank you, Nino, for the opportunity to be here.
That's amazing how you started with the business. It's an interesting perspective. So now actually let's move on to Mark. Hi, Mark. So how did you get started? Like basically anything that will help us.
Sure. So we've been running this business for about 6 years, and we manage a little over 100 units, and probably have another 10 more on the way. We started out actually with just 1, and setting it up and doing rent arbitrage, and we did really well. And the investor that I had leased the property from had said, hey, I've got another one for you, but here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy you out of the lease, and we're going to basically split revenues instead. So inadvertently, I stumbled into sort of a co-hosting model, and we sort of grew from there. and that's really really where we've grown. So we manage places for mostly people that have second homes in beachy type vacations spots, but just sort of some of the beginnings of our business was in the Chicago suburbs. So we still manage quite a few in the Chicago suburbs, and and we've also added our own investment dollars. So we manage both for ourselves. My business partner and I have several of in the portfolio that we manage for ourselves, and then but the vast majority, about 80% of them, are for other people. So and yeah, we've been through a couple different property management systems, and very happy with iGMS.
Thank you, thank you. And now it's time to on to Jason. So Jason, how did you get started with all of this?
Hi guys. I started with the short-term rental. I'm an attorney by trade. I've been practicing for about 18 years as an attorney. And about 10 years ago, I started the short-term rental. I bought a building in Miami that had 2 units, and had some issues with some tenants. And in the meantime, I said, well, let me just give 1 unit. Let's start with 1 unit and see how that works. As of right now, it's worked so well. We have over 20 units, and we've managed, in addition to that, another 25 units for other hosts in the Miami Design District in the South Beach area. And we've been doing this for a little bit over 10 years. We've been with iGMS for nearly half of that time. And it's really been nonstop. Really right now, that's what I do. I still have my law firm, 3 locations in Florida, but primarily focus on the managing of the short-term rentals in the business. My partner is, I know I heard Ernst & Young here. My partner works for Deloitte as a manager at the global side. So, but that's mostly what we do.
That's amazing to see like how like a bit of different everyone's story is. And actually, let's start with like a couple of questions. So like, what actually like were like the biggest challenges you faced like when starting your business? Like, what did you do to like solve them, like overcome them? Actually, let's start with Sean. So Sean, like what was like the biggest challenge that you faced?
I think starting out, it was finding good crews because I'm self-managing here. Finding a good cleaning crew and finding a good maintenance crew is critical because everybody's probably aware that like one of the #1 comments you find in reviews and bad reviews is, hey, the place wasn't cleaned up to par or something like that. And so it was a difficult decision, but we actually had to switch our cleaning crews, and we're happy with it now, and found a fantastic maintenance guy that will go out at all hours of the night and go fix anything. Another one of the struggles is that we built all of our beach houses in Surfside, and just the challenges with the permitting process and with the Texas General Land Office and so forth. There's just a lot of hurdles to get into, and I wouldn't say that there's a key insight for me here. It was just persistence. It was just continuing and going through the process and not giving up. And on our most recent property right now, we're at about 1.5 to 2 years where we're still waiting to build, but we're not giving up. And so that's just putting in the hard work is really what's key there. So yeah.
That yes, actually like finding a cleaning crew as well is like hard for like a lot of the hosts, as we see like from the platform, like as we heard from the groups as well. So Chris, like what was like your like biggest challenge in this case?
Yeah, managing the communications with the guests. That's where iGMS does its magic, where the automated messages that come in. I was an English teacher before I got into this, so my glamping operation became so successful I quit teaching, and I'm doing this full time. So, but I would be totally overwhelmed if I was answering onesie twosies, and having those automated messaging system in there. And there's a bit of an art to it too. There's a very good book out there. I'll do a book drop for you, but it's called The Airbnb Way. And the idea is it's really how to master that communication with a customer, things like under promising, over delivering. That's a messaging thing, where I don't want to over promise and make all these glamorous, we're going to do all this stuff for you, and then they come and it doesn't happen. I would rather give them what they need, and then when they come, they discover, I gift them with a bottle of homemade wine. Ooh, that's a big thing that we like to do at the glamping operation. That's a skill, fun skill. Is really, I really kind of get juiced up about it. It's really, hospitality is really what I'm into, and so we discovered that early on, that we really loved doing this so much that we were going to change our careers for this. But iGMS helped in that automated messaging and really get. Oh, and the on the sidebar where you have the what would you call it, like a roadmap of messaging, is extremely helpful, because then it helps me think, okay, what is the customer going through? I mean, what is their experience with me? It's easy to just kind of blurt out information and be confusing to people when you're running from the hip and shooting from the hip here. But when you have that sequential, like I right when you sign up, you get this, 3 days before you check in, you get this, morning of, you get this, and then I'm able to go through cognitively through that communication that helps in the entire relationship. My reviews go up, everybody's happy, and people pay for their venues and come back. It's really wonderful.
Yeah. Mark, and what did you find the most, the biggest challenge in your operations?
Both Sean and Chris hit on really, really important things, and they all sort of feed into what we found was important as we grew. We had to systematize things. So, and yes, the expectation is that they were clean and all the lights worked, and nothing was not working, but like with the maintenance guys, and the automated messaging is critical, but it needs to be automated but also not seem like it's automated, and so there's an art to writing those type of messages as well, but it takes a little bit of time to sort of get there, but once you get there, then it allows you to sort of repeat it for the next one, and then the other thing, so that just putting that system together, and I'll give you an example. So about a year and a half ago, I ended up in the hospital with COVID and was out of commission for about a month, and fortunately, thanks to the system that we sort of put together, and iGMS is sort of central to that system, about 90% of the business continued on in an automated fashion because of the way we had set it up. So having that automated system is critical, between communication and how do you solve problems. And we have a group of customer service people that are in the inbox from 8 in the morning till about 4 in the morning. And so coming up with sets of rules for, well, how do you deal with it? You're going to get the same request a bunch of times. How do you deal with that? What kind of authority do I give them to make these decisions? And what, beyond that, what do they have to sort of ask me or one of the other people on our sort of senior team to do? And so that was, creating that system was probably the biggest sort of part of, once we got past, say, 5 or 6 properties, then it really became critical.
Yeah, automation is like a big part of a lot of the hosts. So sometimes even having flu, for example, going for a vacation, anything. So basically, a lot of them use it for not only that reason, but of also to maintenance that they having a way easier approach to their days and off days, so and everything basically. So that is one of the really good points that you mentioned here as well. Okay, so what about you? So what did you find the biggest challenge in your operations?
We have in-house cleaning staffs, but the biggest issue for us having so many properties was making sure that there were no conflicts. The calendaring system, this is where iGMS, and everybody's saying iGMS, but I've been with you guys for so long. iGMS system, the multi-calendar system for us is just a complete lifesaver. I second what Chris said as far as being able to do the automated system, as far as the messaging, which I think that brought our reviews up significantly. But for sure, for me, it was the multi-calendar, but just being able to use that. I know we have a single calendar system, which we seldom use. We literally live by the multi-calendaring system, which really, boosts up our business.
That's amazing. So now I want to know, and actually I think others want to know, like what did you do what do you do about like finding and like securing your first property? Because a lot of the people who join us may be like newer people who are just starting out. So Sean, like, can you like tell us a bit more about that? And we'll also like let our other hosts speak as well.
And before I touch on that really quick, I just wanted to echo on the automated messaging through iGMS. That's absolutely was critical. It was game changing for us. And I know early on, I've been with iGMS for 7 or 8 years now. I think iGMS even helped me write some of my templates that I wrote. As well as I think one of the critical messages that I figured out that I needed was that day after they check in message to see how things were going. Guests really appreciate that you're checking up on them and if there's any issues or anything. In terms of how we got started, originally my family and I, we've been getting to Surfside pretty much 20, 30 years, and we really wanted to have a second vacation, or a vacation home, a second home. And so we all went in on a mortgage together, and we were going to rent it out half the time to cover the cost of the mortgage. And we soon found out that this was a very lucrative industry, and it was booked all of the time. And so then we added properties from there. A lot of our stuff's internally financed, so I'm probably not going to be as much help if like trying to get third-party financing, other than my first house was done through a conventional mortgage. So
Chris, I know you told us a bit, but I think it would be helpful like for people who just joined us to like know about it.
Yeah. So my property was owned. I lived here for 20 years before we started our glamping operation. So that was easy. However, I did take a HELOC out of the property for the major development that I just installed this last year. Very expensive to do a septic tank. We got all new tents and things like that. So we really did an upgrade this last winter that's wrapping up with right now. But we did finance another property, second property, just like with the first. Going from the first to the second tent, I'm going from the first to the second property, and because it makes sense that the feasibility studies that we've done, the demand is there, so we're meeting that demand. We got creative financing with that owner. That was a off-season property, but beautiful Ponderosa pines, and we're gonna put tree houses up there and just have all sorts of fun. But we got into the financing with an option to buy, which is something that we pay him rent for 2 years so that we can get everything established. It was a good deal for him because his house was totaled from the previous renter. So we got in there, remodeled it and stuff. And so now he's got a functional house. But come December, we're going to buy it because we've had a glamping operation going on there, and we got a business loan lining up and funding and stuff. We're going to get that purchased. The third property we're looking into is a foreclosure opportunity, and we just got to know the owner. This is a somewhat creative financing, even though it's on the market. It was going to be sold, or trying to be sold, for $1.8 million, which is out of our price range. But it's another beautiful piece of property. It's 20 acres, mountain views here in Colorado. It's just be stellar if we could get a hold of that property. Well, the foreclosure went through, but the what would you call it? It didn't sell. So the owners got back with the property, and I'm in the process of talking with them right now. One of my sons is in the process of talking to them now to set up something else like that, an option to buy, saying, look, I know you didn't want this property anymore. He's in South Carolina, but a deal could be made, and we could set up, if we have that option to buy this a few years out, if we set up the business on it, then it justifies the purchase of the property. So in a few years, we could have 3 properties. In fact, we'd like to have 5 in this area. That's feasibility studies show that that's kind of this booming area. We could sustain that, and who knows? We'll be on this on the iGMS broadcast channel with a bigger story in a few years. So that's where we're at right now. And that's how we were able to obtain these properties.
That's amazing. Mark, what about you? So like, how did you go about finding and securing your first property?
So my first property that I had, I was looking to lease a property with the intent of doing it with Airbnb. And at the same time, it was important that whoever I leased it from knew exactly what I was doing. So I've been investing in real estate for quite some time and flipping homes. So I knew a good number of investors. So I talked to them about properties that I knew that they had that were, for rent. And we found one that was in the right neighborhood, and went from there. Once we got up and running, we got a few under our belt and had a good track record. Then we started to build relationships with realtors, especially in some of the vacation areas where people are buying second homes anyway. And the question comes up often in their sales cycle of, well, geez, what could do you rent it? Do you know anybody that does rent it? And so we help those realtors with giving those potential buyers investment or income projections for those properties. And then we also do a little bit of outbound marketing, pay-per-click, look for people that are specifically looking for management.
That's good. And Jason, what about you?
My first property I actually purchased through a foreclosure sale and put it through conventional rentals. That didn't work out too well. Out of the 2 units, one of the units I decided to turn into an Airbnb, and the rest was history. Like Chris says, the numbers worked. So once the second tenant left, we tried that with the second apartment. That worked as well. And then eventually we bought a $5 million compound on South Beach and renovated it and made some new construction within that half an acre lot and took off from there.
That's amazing. So a lot of like our attendees also want to know like strategies, like how do you attract people to your properties and actually building your brand. So Sean, could you please tell me what strategies did you use to build your brand, attract your guests, having the properties in the theme? So basically anything that will help them.
Yeah, sure. One of the things I first did, and I couldn't believe that Surfside didn't have it, was I created a Facebook group for vacation rentals. It's up to, this is a small community, it's up to 4,000 users. And so I'm able to directly advertise on that as well as I manage it. I've done that for Canyon Lake as well. I have an Instagram page set up. I have Facebook profile set up, as well as some of the content that I use. I do some drone photography and I post that. I used a company called Guest Hook to help me with a little bit of my branding and so forth. And I've got ideas just from staying at other Airbnbs and so forth on just, I have a really nice welcome guide, as well as I use TouchSafe for the electronic version of it. I have a one pager that's in the place, as well as I put a sign outside the front of our house advertising it, because there's a lot of people that just drive by and so forth. But I think that social media is obviously key here. So
yeah, so we noticed a trend that also before, for example, hosts did not advertise their properties as much on social media, but now it's an upcoming trend, and it's really good to see that a lot of the hosts are doing it as well. Chris, what about you? So how do you?
I wrote down some notes here. So one is a website, just having a landing page or a website. I have one, people are welcome to go see it. It's monumentglamping.com. And I have my properties there. That's my display. Hey, here's what it is. And then people are able to direct books straight to iGMS. And so I've got that link right at the top, got links all embedded throughout the literature. And that's exciting. So the website is definitely it. I have this principle that I really consult other glampers and things like that. I'm involved in the American Glamping Association, and I'm kind of really into the movement. And I say you have to let the research guide you. So if do what works, like what Jason was saying, this is like the numbers work out. Let's chase after that. So I like to do that, and that influenced me. You mentioned social media. That influenced me to get into social media. I kind of didn't want to. I wanted to just ride the lightning and just not do the social media. But boy, it really has turned out to be profitable. So I post an ad on there and I get hundreds of people viewing because I'm in the glamping world, and glamping is just cool as all get out. So people like to see tents on their feeds, and I'm starting to get into, actually I'm getting into helping other glamping hosts, and people can check that out too if they're really into glamping, want to check it out. It's glampingguy.com, and I do some videos and just like, where do you go to the bathroom on a glamping on an off-grid site? I've got things like that. It's like on everyone's mind. What do you do when you go camping and stuff? And what do they look like? And so I reveal a lot online. That's where the social media just kind of catches on fire. When people are, there's a huge market, I think. I know this because the research guides me on this. There's a huge market of people who wouldn't mind glamping if they really knew what it was. And so they get kind of encouraged when they see these pictures and go, oh, honey, how about we go glamping instead of a hotel when we go to the Colorado or something. Now that even that option opens up to them. And why? Well, it's because it came across their social media feed, and I'm the glamping guy. So, stay at my place. I did separate the two audiences too. That goes with kind of like website development, where there's monument glamping is really, that's where you go if you want to stay somewhere. Glamping guy is where you go if you really want to get into glamping as a host, and be a customer of iGMS and actually run an operation. So that's how's that for an answer?
That's amazing. Mark, what about you? So what strategies do you use to
You know what? We don't do as much social media. We used to do a fair amount of it. And what we found is the most sort of bang for our buck was to really focus on making sure that our properties were highly ranked on Airbnb and VRBO, and doing everything we could there. And we sort of shied away from posting on social media just because we weren't getting as good of a return as we'd like there. And I think that it's a great, we've both had direct booking sites and not direct booking sites. And so currently we don't actually have a direct booking site. But I think there's a lot of merit to it. And as the industry overall, the sharing industry, especially in accommodation, grows, then I think that there's going to be, I think the opportunities are increasing. So I'm sure that Sean and Chris's results will prompt me to sort of circle back around and look at that again as well.
That's amazing to have two different strategies here as well. So Jason, what about you? So are you using social media or not? Or what do you use to market your properties?
I'm with Mark. Our main focus is trying to make sure that we are, as far as our reviews goes pretty high with Airbnb. We make sure that those reviews speaks for themselves, and we get a lot of clients. I have tried to do the social media and so on, and the booking with us. Just the back end of it, it's just not only is it time consuming, it's just too many back ends that we don't really want to deal with. We rather, Airbnb deal with the credit card processing, deal with any other issues, and we just focus on making sure that our ranking is as high as possible.
That's amazing. So we do have different strategies here, and it's good for our starters to see what they can use to strategize their brand. And actually about branding and guest experience. So we know that guest experience is most important thing in doing Airbnb or renting out your house. And could you please let me know, like, what do you do to like manage your guest experiences and like ensure that like guest satisfaction and to get like that 5-star review and having like amazing like super host status as well? So Sean, let's start with you. So like, what like do you do?
Yeah, sure. I think I've touched on a couple of the things. I mean, this automated messaging is critical, right? They get a message right when they book. And one of the comments I think by I think it was Chris was there was an art to this automated messaging, like that it doesn't seem like it's automated, right? So putting it on, hey, it's not going out at 11 a.m., it's going out at 11:04 or something, and just how you craft that message to them so they feel that like you're really following up with them, that you're checking on them. I think that one of the game changers was using touch stay and having an electronic welcome guide. I've heard many comments on how much guests love using that, as well as, yeah, just the following up and making sure that the property is in pristine condition when they check in. And that means is that I'm constantly continually improving and evolving, right? And so we remodeled 2 of our homes that were originally built in 2015. We touched it up a couple years ago, and so I'm just constantly trying to improve on what I have, as well as taking that feedback that you get from the guests. It's absolutely critical. They say, hey, you were missing a couple cups. I'm right on it. I tell the guests, hey, I'll order some more. Thanks for letting me know. And just really taking what the guest says and trying to apply it. One of the other things too is that when you get a bad guest, the way that I think about it is I treat it as a business, in that it's not, if you think about it as your personal home and hey, they stained a towel or they did this, you're going to have that happen all the time. You just gotta move on from that, and you got to think about what does the next guest think? Because if you start getting in arguments with the current guests, it's a losing battle. You could potentially get a retaliatory review or something, and so it's critical that you're thinking about how you're treating your guests and how they would want to be treated. So, and just a quick side note to the direct booking. The way that iGMS does it and getting the website set up, it's super easy. It takes like 5-10 minutes integrating it with Stripe. And so that, I think we get about a 20% of our bookings come from direct bookings, and you can be cost advantageous to somebody that's doing it on Vrbo or just Airbnb, because they're hitting you with 12 to 15% service fees. I can undercut that through my direct booking website. So
That's amazing. Chris, like, what about you? So like,
yeah, about and direct bookings, I'll do another book drop. Mark Simpson is a big author about the direct booking. He says that the ideal is to have about 60% of your bookings be through direct booking, and that really sets your business up to be much more solid and solvent, so that you're not so dependent on just like the gorilla in the room Airbnb or even all the other OTAs. So that's a book that if you're serious about a business, go ahead and read that book, Mark Simpson. I forget what his book's name, but it had to do with direct bookings. Piggybacking the automatic messaging, I'll give you an example of how magical this was. I remember early on, we had a problem with parties. People would they'd see the Creekside tents and they just started inviting all their friends over to the party. So I had these problems with parties. And so I strategically put an automated message in there. So I wanted to get the booking. I didn't want to go and have like no parties. We're here on and I didn't want to be mean to people. But at the same time, I wanted to be firm on that. So I have this automated message going, and they would get the booking, they get their reservation and stuff, and then 15 minutes later, I would come back and say, oh, and by the way, we've had some problems with parties. Just wanted to re-emphasize that there's no parties allowed and that. So if this ruins your plans, let me know. Well, that did lead to a couple of people saying, oh, I was planning to party. so let me change my reservation and make changes. And that was all good. So that was an example of using the automated messaging system to really solve a problem that I had. And I since had taken it down. Airbnb has really put the kibosh on parties. And So there were other reasons that I didn't need it anymore. But that really helps. It really helps. And another example of that I use the automated message system just lately is I want them to give reviews on Google, not just Airbnb or the OTAs. So I'm asking them with another automated message like 5 days after their stay that says, hey, by the way, we would love for you to give a review also on Google, because that makes our rankings go up and stuff like that. And just that little bit of automated message kind of gives them a little context again 5 days later, and hopefully they'll rebook and come back and keep thinking about Monument Glamping.
Yeah, so automation is a big part. So as I noticed, Mark, what about you? So is automation also like a big part of your like perfect guest experience?
Yes, absolutely. Both automation and the messages. And I've done similar things as Chris has done, where some houses are, more sort of prone to partying based on where they're located. We also have some houses that are on the lake, but they're up north. So we turn automation on or off when we're sending them messages about, oh, there's kayaks available, please use a life vest and stuff like that. But after October, then when they're put away, then they then that we make that message stop. So that's important. So it's huge to pay attention to the questions that you get asked as you get a new property. And we try to, with that automation, we try to answer as many of the questions as we see recurring, so that the question is answered before it's even asked. And we use touch stay as well in the same fashion. So we try to incorporate both. Touch stay is a great tool. Not to oversell that, but I agree with Sean. It helps the guest. Just when you think no one's reading this, and then you make a mistake, you'll hear about it. So I mean, that's you make a mistake of a description, or you'll hear about it. But then the other thing that I would say that is critical to our guest experience. One of the things that we started doing a while back is that the cleaning, and we're not always right by our units. Like I said, we kind of manage all over the United States, and our team is sort of distributed through the United States. So what we end up trying to do, as many places as we can, we hire we'll call them a quality assurance person that comes in after the cleaning team, but before the guest arrives. And what they do is make sure the cleaning is up to snuff, up the way it should be. We ask them to walk in with a different set of eyes. So cleaning team will come in and work really hard to get the place clean, but sometimes they'll miss the fact that a light bulb's out. So we ask our quality assurance person to come in and do those things. We found these people are unique. They need to have a little bit of an artistic eye and be able to put themselves in the shoes of the owner, but also have a toolkit in the car that they can fix a couple things, light repair if needed. But what ends up happening is those people give us, if it's a same day turn, that person will give us, an hour heads up. And a lot of times I can get my handyman over to solve the problem before the guest even arrives. So it's not a problem for the guest, which again leads to good reviews, right? So the smoother everything goes for the guests when they arrive, the better reviews you're going to get. And it's a snowball rolling downhill where it gets better and better. But that quality assurance person makes a big difference.
Yeah, actually, we have heard like a lot of hosts started using like someone like to like check in after the cleaners, and actually that is like one of the good strategies that they're using, and it's really helpful for them as well. Jason, what about you? So what do you do in the terms of like guest experience?
The automated system for us works. It is as good as it gets. They get an immediate message once they're booked. A couple of days prior to their check-in, they get a message during and after. And everyone seems to be on the same page. If there's an issue, we know it immediately. We try to address it immediately. For the most part, we're in South Beach, we're in Miami. I mean, the scenery speaks for itself, but we do try to give my standards with my staff is I tell them, if I wouldn't stay there, then it's not a go. So that, I try to make sure that the guest has an experience. No one wants to go home to their home. If they're on vacation, they really want to go to somewhere that is very nice, very pleasant, extremely clean. I think for me, in my experience, once a guest walks in and the place is extremely clean, there pretty much there won't be any complaint that will make you lose that reservation. Everything else is workable, but the place has to be stinking clean, and that requires you to pay your cleaning staff, if you have in-house staff, a much higher rate than the average cleaning staff would get, to make sure that they take it and take the responsibility. Very, 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 very important, because having to call my supervising staff, cleaning staff to come in and fix something that should have been fixed the first time, it's just doesn't happen.
That's amazing. So now I would have, like, from my side, my final question. It would be like, what advice would you give someone who is just starting their SCR business? So that, like, final piece that, for example, they will be missing, or like what is like the crucial thing and like starting this business? Shan, what would be like your piece of advice?
I mean, I would start by doing your homework in the area that you plan on going into, checking comps, and then setting up everything appropriately before you start, setting up iGMS. And this is maybe not for newer hosts, but one of the things that I didn't mention that was a game changer for me was price labs. And using a dynamic pricing system, it does so much better than I would have ever done. I mean, I knew about the major holidays and getting higher rates for that, but it literally scrapes the data and knows exactly when there's going to be demand and when to raise the rates. And I've been getting some rates that I never even thought possible that I would be able to get just via price labs. And so that's been key. Again, finding a good cleaning crew, finding a good maintenance crew, setting up everything in iGMS, from automated templates to the automatic Airbnb reviews that go out for you, to that your cleaning tasks. That's a huge part, is that I don't really have to manage my cleaning team, because they automatically get a task whenever a property is either booked or someone changes the dates. And so getting all those ducks in a row, I mean, is I think critical. So.
Thank you. And Chris, what about you? So what would your advice would be?
Yeah, aside from all the basic stuff that Sean kind of ran through, some of the basic stuff there, I would say get involved actively in your community. That I left not only teaching, but I saw the business. I was more of a national business, so I wasn't really involved politically, locally, and things like that. But this business is very local. And so I joined the Chamber of Commerce. I started writing for the local newspaper, and they're covering the local board of trustee meetings in town and things like that. And really just engaging in the local community. There is I think a fallacy or a flawed idea that people don't like Airbnbs in their neighborhood. Businesses love Airbnbs. I mean, they love short-term rentals. They love vacation rentals, because we're bringing people to town and we're giving them a great experience. So the glamping operation here, Monument Glamping, named after the neighboring town here. I'm actually in El Paso County, so I'm not really part of the town, but I'm right bordering it. And they just get into it, and they love what I'm doing. And I think that even if I was being an Airbnb, I would get more involved in the business community. So I would suggest join the Chamber of Commerce. You're a business now, okay? Even if you're doing 1 or 2 units or something, you're looking to expand, get into that. Oh, and the Chamber of Commerce, realtors they're magnets to that kind of environment. I mean, there's more realtors than I think anything in the community, but they're great people, and they have their ears and eyes all over the community when it comes to real estate. So I've actually, the third property, come to think of it, was through a realtor through the Chamber of Commerce. We hosted a breakfast, Wendy and I did, and we talked to the whole about 20 business people. And one of the realtors says, "Hey, you know what? I think I know this property up in Chipeta Park that might be just the thing for you." And that led to one thing and to another, and here we are in talks for actually acquiring it. So that's my big advice. Get involved locally.
Thank you. Mark, what about you?
So one of the things that the advice I was given early on was have a pretty clear picture of who you're trying to serve, because that makes all the rest of the decisions easy. And for us, it changes from location to location. Some of our units are set up for business travelers. One of our concentrations of places is right around a naval base in Chicago that does all the basic training for all of the Navy guys. There's a graduation every Friday at that, and mom, dad, grandma, grandpa want to come in and see graduation of their sailor getting out of basic. So we set those up to set up an environment that's very hospitable to families coming in. They want to make their sailor a home cooked meal and let them sleep in a comfortable bed for the first time in about 3 months. So we make our decisions based on that. Here in Southwest Florida, where I actually live, the places we set up here are based on families that come and travel, and what do they need for the beach, and what kind of things do they need so they don't have to schlep along all their baby gear and their beach gear and everything along, and all that's there at the houses. So that makes a huge difference as far as I'm concerned, because it makes all the rest of the decisions on setting the place up really, really simple if you have a clear idea of who you're trying to serve in each spot.
That's great. So that's really helpful advice. Jason, what about you? So what advice would you be?
I say keep it simple when you're starting this venture. Manage your costs. And IKEA should be a very good friend of yours. Keep it very simple, keep it clean. If your favorite color is yellow, coloring your walls yellow is probably not as inviting as it would be something that's neutral, because you do want to keep the guest in mind and keep it, as versatile as possible. And given that you don't know any given day, who's the guest you're going to have. We have a lot of Europeans, we have Americans, we have young, old, depending on the season. So keep it simple.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for answering all of those questions. And now it's actually time to move on to our questions from our attendees right now. So actually I can see 2 questions. So if there is more, just let us know in the Q&A section. And the first question would be from Neil, and he's asking, can you discuss your revenue model, especially when managing for other property owners, and how do you collect your payments? So as I know, currently all of our hosts are actually having you do all of your own your properties, right? Currently, so none of you manage your properties.
We manage for other people.
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah,
in this case, what would your take on this?
So sure. So for us, when we manage for other people, and really what we view it as, we become business partners with the property owner. So we do a revenue share split so that we both have our interests aligned. And it's a negotiated revenue split between us and the owner.
Thank you.
Same here, same exact revenue split idea is what we do. And so both parties are very interested, and both parties are just as interested to make sure that every reservation is as good as it gets.
And I do the same thing. I used to manage a property. I ended up dropping it, but I have family members who are kind of all involved with these properties, and including a revenue split where they get a percentage of the actual gross revenue that comes in, the earnings that come in, is very important in our structure. And that's because it's got the incentive to do better. It's not just an employee who's just doing it over, and then you got to that's a job in and of itself to manage an employee to make sure they're doing a good job. But if they've got that financial incentive to make satisfied customers, to more customers, to repeat customers, then everyone's happy and everything gets done correctly because they are vested just like you are as the owner. So
yeah, so next question that we have would be, what accounting / bookkeeping systems do you use? So let's start with Sean. So Sean, do you use any accounting bookkeeping software currently?
So I'm a CPA, but we are currently using Excel, we are anxiously awaiting an integration with iGMS. I guess a plug for you, Nina, and your bosses to have that plug, because we started on QuickBooks a little bit, but I know y'all haven't done the integration yet on that, and so as soon as that happens, we plan on getting a software that's integrated with iGMS. So
Yeah, I have an accountant takes. I hate bookkeeping and accounting. I just get it's my worst thing on the planet. But it's like one of those necessary evils. You have to do it in order to do business well. If you don't know where your money is, and then you're just running around like a chicken with his head cut off. You're just not focused and going the direction you should go, or taking advantage of the opportunities you should have. So I've hired out my bookkeeping. They use QuickBooks, and that's just an easy way. So I see the reports from the QuickBooks, and then I look at balance sheets and P&Ls, but I don't want to get into the details of stuff. Oh, and also, by the way, I did just implement with my team the Profit First system. That's written by Mike Michalowicz. He's kind of a business guru and an entrepreneurship, but that has been very helpful because I'm more of the operating expenses kind of guy. I want to spend money to make money, and I'm doing everything to make it work. But I do need to think of profits first, and set aside money for taxes, and be responsible to the different owners and things like that. So, like I said before, accounting is very important. I get that. I just hate it. I'm an English teacher. I'd be more left brain type of or right brain type of thinker. So anyway, that's another book drop. I've been doing a lot of book drops, but that's what I do for finances.
Thank you for sharing that. Mark, what about you? So what system do you use for accounting / bookkeeping?
So I would echo that Profit First system is a great system. And we have a bookkeeper / CFO on our team that uses QuickBooks. So she's involved in that, in the business every day, and making sure that we're heading in the right direction, have all the right reserves set in the right places. So and yeah, the sooner we can get that integrated, the better. But so yeah, that's thank goodness I agree with Chris. Thank goodness I don't have to do that on a day-to-day basis. I sat in one accounting class in college and decided rather quickly that I was going to be in finance instead of accounting. Sorry, Sean.
Okay, Jason, what about you?
Same thing like Mark. We have a numbers guy on board, Jose, and he does all the bookkeeping and make sure that we keep going forward.
Okay, so thank you. And we do have a next question for Mike. So are there any tools that you use to estimate revenue, like AirDNA or Rabu? So basically something like Price Labs and Wheelhouse and all of that. So Sean, you mentioned that you also use like Price Labs. So what are there any other tools that you're using or have used before?
Yeah, I'm currently just using Price Labs. AirDNA, I've heard is great if you're trying to get into a new market, right, and trying to see what the comps are. But yeah, I currently use Price Labs for looking at my future revenues. So.
And I use Beyond Pricing, although I've turned it off in the last 6 or 8 months, just because glamping is such a unique short-term rental style. However, I think I've heard just through discussions in the glamping community that Beyond Pricing or Price Labs they're getting kind of into the glamping world and get the unique stay world, and being more adaptable to that. So I might turn it back on here pretty soon. When I was on it, it wasn't quite getting it as perfected as I wanted it. However, trying to keep track of the pricing and I feel like I'm leaving a lot of money on the table because I'm not charging enough, and so I gotta get a hold of that. That's something I got to tighten up in my own business processes and make it better.
Okay, Mark, what about you? So do you use any tools currently?
So sure, we mentioned Touch Stay. That's an important tool. We have used a lot of different and continue to use a lot of different dynamic pricing tools. We use Price Labs, we use Wheelhouse, and in the past we've used Beyond Pricing. We don't currently use them. So those are the three, and especially Price Labs and Wheelhouse, very, very similar as far as the different things that you can do to drive the pricing and customize it for your needs. So that, yeah, those are the big tools that we use.
Okay, and Jason, what about you? So do you use any dynamic pricing tools currently?
Price Lab really is the only thing that we use.
Okay, now we have actually another question. So tools for getting started, for example, writing rules, welcome letter, advice. So this advice would be like for Airbnb, Verbo, both. So I'm sure that you are distributed through like different channels. So do you use like all of those rules that you have like set and mentioned in this workshop for all of your platforms currently?
So I'm currently using, as mentioned, I'm using TouchStay, right? But I believe that iGMS has some of those templates. They have some rules templates, like a welcome letter template. But I use the professional writing service, Guesthook, to help me set up my TouchStay, to write my descriptions. It's key to also be writing your descriptions and all your photos too, just so people know what exactly they're looking at, as well as they've helped me with some of my templates too. Yeah, I think that's rules welcome letter. But yeah, and then it's kind of piggybacks into the next question too, was electronic version. We use TouchStay. So
And I go, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Dino.
No, I'm just saying, like, what about you? So like for what tools do you using?
I figured I was the next in line. I've gone kind of off grid. I'm very curious of well, anyway, I write a monument. You can see Welcome to Monument Glamping. I don't have the book actually with it, but it's a 3-ring binder book. I wanted to have the welcome binder type of experience, non-electronic, but something that's in there. We actually sit it up on the pillow on the bed when they walk right in. There's this big queen bed with this welcome guide. And then they have a place where they can sign and draw pictures and things like that for the next guest and things. So we make it the welcome book very much of an experience, part of the check-in experience. And I encourage other glampers or anybody into that unique stay world, where they're not there just for a bed and a pillow. They're there to experience your venue. If that's the kind of venue you have, then do something that's really more personable like that, like a welcome book. And they like to see everything in town too. They want to see what your restaurant is. We have hiking trails that are within a mile from our trail. Like the Pike National Forest, the largest national forest in Colorado, is a mile away from our place. And so they want to know the secret trails and things like that. So I have a little map in there and things like that. So that's how I've handled that welcoming book literature. And that's how I've handled it.
Okay, Mark, what about you? So I know you mentioned you use TouchStay as well, right?
Do we use TouchStay? And then the one thing I would say, and part of the question was about rules. And so the way you put house rules in Airbnb and VRBO are a little bit different. You can be pretty elaborate with your house rules in Airbnb and VRBO. You're fairly limited. So we actually add in a rental agreement that makes sure that all those rules are uncovered there as well. Part of the reason why house rules are so important is so we have quite a few on Marco Island, Florida, and it's a community that it's a quiet community, right? The joke is that Marco Midnight is at 9 o'clock. And so we put in there some rules around having parties and being loud, and so that in effect, I'm trying to scare off the people in advance that are bad guests. And that's, we've been pretty successful at that. We actually managed one property in New Orleans, and I joke that that's my test lab for bad guests. So how do I keep my guest quality good there? And we've done a few different things with that.
Okay, and Jason, what about you?
Yeah, welcome pamphlet essentially for the client that they have at all the units. They're able to just flip it and see all the things that they need, and it's worked for us.
Okay, So thank you. So next question is mostly for iGMS. So will there be an iGMS app for Android? So as you know, so currently, so our iGMS app on Android is not available currently because our developers are making some updates to it, and hopefully it will be up and running soon in like a couple of weeks. So I know they have been working hard to like rework it on the software side, plus the aspect of Google Play Store. So it should be available to download in a couple of weeks. Next question that we have is from Nicole, and is it possible to have an electronic version of welcome guide sent to me? So so do you, any of you hosts here have like electronic versions, for example, that you can share with Nicole, or like maybe where she can get some ideas for like how to like create her welcome guide, and if you do have like any recommendations about it?
Sure, I'd be happy to share it with if she wants to get a hold of me. Get a hold of me at chris@glampingguy.com. So Nicole, send me a note and I will start the conversation.
Okay, so
Post my link in the chat. I just got to pull it here. So
yeah, actually, so you can also like share it, like your links in the chat as well. So anything that works. And
The chat. All right, great. I'll do the same thing.
yeah, so our like attendees will see it right there. And also, as I can see, that was our last question for today. So Nicole says thank you, yeah, as I can see. So yeah, so this was our last question for today. So thank you everyone for joining me today. So it was like really helpful and not only insightful to our attendees, it was insightful to me as well to hear like different perspectives, like different areas, and it's really helpful. So any like last words for our attendees from you?
You know what? One of the things that I've always been amazed is sort of at the build it and they'll come, and because we've opened places where it was a rehab that I did that I couldn't sell. So we're like, well, let's just turn it into an Airbnb. Like, why would anyone want to go to Westchester, Illinois? And it turned out to be one of our most successful Airbnbs early on. So there's lots of demand in a lot of different markets for this type of these Airbnb units, these short-term rental units. And I think that demand is only growing. So just have confidence that if you do the research and get, you build it out in the right way and you're providing a quality product for the guest, you're going to be successful at it.
That's amazing.
Ditto. Perfectly said. Well said.
Yeah, so thank you everyone. Also, whoever joined in, so this session is also recorded and will be sent to you after the call ends. And thank you everyone. So have a nice day, have a nice evening, and thank you for sharing all of your experiences today.
Thanks,
Thank
Nino.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye,
Have a
guys.
nice day.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys. Take care.